we begin to wrap up the Logic of English Master Teacher Training, I'd like to put in perspective for you how students nationwide are doing with reading and what that means for what we've been learning. In 2017, the NAEP score said that 32% of students read below basic. Just pause and think about that. That's a third of fourth graders are reading below basic. 31% read at basic. 27% only were proficient, and another 9% advanced. So what does this mean? This means that 64% of students in the US, like 2/3 of US fourth graders, are struggling with reading. They're not proficient. And what happens when we look at 8th grade? Do we close that gap at all? Sadly, we do not. And in fact, what happens if you look closely at these scores is that essentially, a fewer students are in the below basic level, but we also have fewer students in the advanced level. So we still have 64% of 8th graders reading below grade level. They're not proficient in reading. And now we only have 4% of students at the advanced level. I don't know about you, but I find that a lot of what we've been learning in this training, I think, has huge implications to solving this. So before we talk about that, though, let's go back and look at what's been happening. If we look at 2013, it was 65%. So we closed the gap by 1% in those 4 years. If we go back to 2003, it was 68% reading below grade level. And let's go back a little farther. To 1992, it was 72%. So that gap is closing, but if you stop and think about how much time and how much money and how much effort we've put to reading education, I don't know about you, but I'm not happy with the progress that we've been making. And I have a feeling that as you've been going through this training, maybe you're experiencing what I did as you learned some of these foundational skills to reading and as you learned the phonograms and spelling rules. I saw all these implications to all my previous students and the difference that this could have made. So I think that this is the solutions that we need to look at. However, when I tell people that, sometimes they go, oh, well, actually the problem isn't what or how we're teaching, it's that there's so many ELL students in the country. So I like to look at these in context. If we think about how many students are part of the ELL population compared to how many students struggle in reading, well, according to the 2013 census, about 20% of the population didn't speak English as their first language, but 65% of fourth graders were reading below grade level. I do not think that is an explanation. Another one that is really common that I hear is, you know what, we're teaching just fine, but the issue is poverty. And I actually have a really big problem with this, but first let's look at the statistics. 65% of fourth graders in 2013 were reading below grade level, but only 15% of households were living in poverty. Now, the poverty line is really, really low, so I don't know about you, I couldn't actually live on that amount of income without a lot of stress. So instead, let's maybe look at home ownership. If you look at this, 65% of households that owned their own home and 65% of students read below grade level. There is no correlation between poverty and the huge number of students struggling with reading. And in fact, one of the problems I have with this is this: the solution to poverty is literacy. It is not an excuse for not teaching reading well. Another statistic that's really fascinating to look at is if we look at high school graduation rates compared to 8th grade literacy levels. On the screen, you'll see that we have this large number of students struggling with reading, and yet 86% of those kids go on to graduate from high school. What does this mean? It means many of our high school graduates still struggle with reading. So they're going through all 12 years of education and they struggle with reading. And we know this is true. Go to your community colleges and you will find another level of remedial reading classes that these same students are taking. What we're doing over and over and over is not working. It's also fascinating if you compare college graduation to 8th grade graduation, because we seem to be able to graduate from high school without being able to read well. But if you look at the scores back from 2003 and then follow them later through college graduation, 68% of students were struggling with reading, 71% could not get a college degree. There's this very tight correlation. If a student struggles with reading, they are not going to be able to succeed in college, and that really makes sense. And that means that many of their dreams are being crushed, many of their hopes for their future careers are being crushed because they don't have the foundational skills of reading. I really see this as a social justice issue, and it's one of the reasons I became involved in the reading issue. It wasn't just because it made an impact in my children's lives, but when I realized these statistics, I realized that we have a responsibility to try to solve this. So let's look at the states that are doing well. So the third state in the nation, top of the top 3, is New Hampshire. Nationwide, 64% of students in 4th grade are reading below grade level. In New Hampshire, which is, again, the top 3, is 57%. Just pause and think about that. That's still more than half of students reading below grade level. And I just want you to think, are you really happy with that? State number 2 is New Jersey. 51% of students read below grade level. That's only 49%. We still have more students not proficient than that are proficient. State number 1, ranked first in the nation for reading, is Massachusetts. And we have 51% of students proficient in reading. 51%, that means 49% of students in the top performing state are struggling with reading. They're reading below grade level in 4th grade. And 4th grade reading rates are the biggest predictor of a student's success. Some states actually plan their prison sizes based on their 4th grade literacy rates. As you pause and consider these statistics, I just want you to think about, have you learned anything in this training that you think will help make a difference in changing these scores and how reading is taught so that all students can succeed?